Veterans in Transition is sponsored by HireVeteransFirst.com, Jelani Consulting, and Village Connector Community.
Welcome to Veterans in Transition, where we promote the veteran community. Each week we travel around the region highlighting veteran-related news, issues, and events. In this episode, Correspondent Jeffrey Sapp continues his conversation with Chad Robechaux about PTSD and other life issues. Jim Benson talked with retired Colonel Gadson. At the U.S. Science and Technology Festival, we talked with two veterans who transitioned working with NASA. We'll have this week's Transition Spotlight and commentary. But first, here at the U.S. Science and Technology Festival in Washington, D.C., we focus on NASA and its efforts to inspire the next generation of students and veterans.
I'm super excited about what we're doing out here today, engaging kids and the community in the STEM and the exciting exploration voyage that's ahead of us for NASA. So this is one of the most exciting times for NASA. We're trying to, in the next couple decades, we have actually 3 concurrent efforts that we're doing with commercial crew, commercializing LEO, low Earth orbit. We're creating the first generation of interplanetary spacecraft for returning humans to the moon and Mars. And we have our continuously manned crewed space station on orbit. As a chief technologist, I'm engaged in developing the technologies that enable this exciting exploration journey ahead of us. So we like to say technology drives exploration. And one of the keys to that is maintaining an innovative and diverse workforce that can really create the new inventions that will make this possible. So we're out here today engaging with a wide sector of the community, people that we know are the right fit, both in the future and in our current workforce needs. We got a lot of students out here, a lot of young people today, and we're actively seeking that innovative edge to make our mission continue to be successful. One of the areas that we work a lot with in my job is we work with the Department of Defense and others in the space sector. And we found that one of the most best fits for our workforce are veterans and folks who have been used to operating in the kind of challenging environment that we currently operate. We have a very large representation in our workforce that are veterans, and we continue to seek out those highly qualified people who understand the kind of exciting challenges that NASA is taking on.
So growing up, the space shuttle program had really influenced me and encouraged me to want to be an astronaut. So I tried to be a pilot in the United States Navy. The wait time actually was very long to get in, so I went into the next best thing that I was passionate about, which was medicine. I did a lot of research and found out that the Navy had one of the best medical corps in the branches, so I chose the Navy to become a medical corpsman. I served 4 years in the Navy and actually crossed over to the Marine Corps as a field medic corpsman. My favorite duty station, I would have to say, was Bethesda, Maryland, because I was the personal EMT for the president at the time. It was cool that we did an event with the president, and the public actually thought he was in the motorcade, and he actually rode in the ambulance with us, and he got to talk to us, and we learned a few things. And just to see the whole behind the scenes on how the president is transported. So once I got out of the Navy, of course, I was a nurse. So I stayed in the nursing practice for another 10 years. Found an opportunity to apply at NASA since that was my boyhood passion, and got accepted. So now at NASA, I do exhibits as well as public outreach, is why I'm wearing a spacesuit today. The spacesuit is to engage the public, to bring them in and talk to NASA. Because some people might be intimidated that they're not smart enough, or something might be topics way over their head. I'm that buffer between the two. On the other side of the house, I do exhibit specialists. So artifacts that fly into space, they come back to Earth, you have to do something with them. So we house them. There's certain protocols on how to keep them safe. We loan them out to the Smithsonians, to the museums, to libraries, to schools. So the military taught me to adapt and overcome. Any situation I feel like that is thrown at me, somehow, some way, we're going to take care of it. The nursing side of the military taught me empathy, which I think is very important in any job that you carry.
I picked to serve in the U.S. Navy because I did ROTC through college, and my dad was in the Coast Guard growing up, and they didn't have ROTC, so I picked the Navy because I saw similarities and I honestly wanted to travel and see the world. I did nuclear submarines, so I was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina and Saratoga Springs, New York. When I got out of the Navy, I went and worked in drilling for oil and natural gas in upstate Pennsylvania. So that was kind of fun to explore kind of the wilderness of Pennsylvania, try my hand at that. I did that for about 2 years. And then after that, I came here to NASA here at Goddard. And I've been here for about 5 years. It's been a great time to kind of act as an intermediary between the engineers and the public. So not necessarily hands-on engineering, but talking about it and writing about it. It's kind of the best of both worlds for me. Brought out some robots and an infrared camera to kind of introduce kids to robotics and infrared cameras and kind of show how technologies can be used in space to help us in space, but also to perform tasks here on the Earth. Honestly, it was a little weird for me getting out of the military, kind of transitioning back into the civilian life. My encouragement would be just to keep trying and keep asking people what they do, where they work, to see if you can see yourself there, and not giving up, not kind of pigeonholing yourself. I never thought I'd be working at NASA. I was a journalism major in college, but you never know what you can find yourself doing if you try and you keep working hard at it.
The next decades promise to be even more exciting and more challenging than the 60 years NASA has been around. And we need to make that possible. We need the best and the brightest on board, and we're excited about the opportunity to partner with new folks to do that.
In this new segment, Transition Spotlight, we feature service members who recently transitioned to business, education, or the corporate arena.
Hola Franco, ¿cómo estás?
Buenas, Maribel, un placer conocerte.
Bueno, cuéntame de tu carrera militar, en qué rama sirves, cuánto tiempo has estado sirviendo.
Bueno, yo estoy en el ejército de los Estados Unidos, entré en el ejército en 1985, acabo de cumplir 32 años de servicio completo, me retiro ahora en 90 días.
En 90 días, sí.
Gracias a Dios, una carrera dedicada, sacrificada, pero con mucho orgullo.
Y explícame cómo ha sido el proceso de transición que estás llevando ahora, que va de la carrera militar a llegar a la vida militar, a vida civil.
Bueno, una cosa que yo aprendí con otro oficial, amigo mío, es que para la transición hay que comenzar por lo menos 2 años antes.
2 años antes,
lo cual
¿sí?
Yo lo hice. Hay unos procesos que, aunque 2 años parecen mucho, pero en realidad no lo es tanto. Ahora mismo estoy a 90 días de retirarme y el tiempo está volando muy rápido. Pero en ese proceso uno aprende mucho los beneficios de los diferentes programas que hay para uno como militar transicionar a lo civil y ver qué otra carrera hay más allá de lo militar.
Y cuéntame, ¿cuáles son las opciones que estás mirando ahora seguir?
Entre las primeras opciones que estoy buscando es o conseguir un trabajo con el gobierno federal o como contratista federal, pero otra opción es establecer mi propia compañía en logística, que ha sido mi carrera toda mi vida. Especialmente estoy buscando reubicarme si no consigo nada aquí en el Washington, D.C. area, en la República Dominicana, donde pueda proveer servicios como por ejemplo la Embajada, el Departamento del Estado, en la área de servicios de logística. Ah,
magnífico. Y cuéntame, estás hoy en la conferencia aquí de veteranos en negocios. ¿Cuánta ayuda has recibido hoy? ¿Cuán beneficioso ha sido para ti el asistir al evento de hoy?
Ha sido bien beneficioso, no solamente la conferencia como hoy, el seminario, pero gracias al señor Charles tuve la oportunidad de coger 2 días Boost to Business en Fort Belvoir, donde lo conocí. Muy interesante, mucha información, lo cual me llevó a interesarme aún más sobre la opción de establecer un negocio. Luego hice otra conferencia en Springfield, en las oficinas centrales, que una vez más me impresionó. Y dado a eso, pues entonces decidí atender hoy a esta conferencia donde hay muchas empresas que están buscando veteranos y también muchas compañías que quieren ayudar a los veteranos a establecer su propia compañía. O sea, ha sido un día de mucho aprendizaje, muchos recursos y muchas ideas que están haciendo que mi cabeza, que creía que era casi imposible, ya vea la luz al final del túnel.
Magnífico. ¿Y cuál va a ser tu próximo paso a seguir una vez que terminemos el evento de hoy?
Bueno, ya una vez salga hoy, que llegue a mi casa, ya empezar a pensar cuál es el próximo evento, dónde están estos recursos pero más aún delinear cuál va a ser mi plan para esa empresa que deseo establecer en logística.
Ok, muchísimas gracias, Franco, por compartirnos tu historia y muchísima suerte con tu negocio.
Gracias, Maribel, ha sido un placer, especialmente a ambos de Puerto Rico. Ha sido un orgullo para mí compartir contigo, con Charles y con todo el personal. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias.
Correspondent Jeffrey Sapp continues his conversation with Chad Robechaux about PTSD and other life issues.
I would spend like 10, 12 hours a day on those wrestling match training, and I didn't deal with the issue that I had, the panic attacks, the anger still, the shame. Like, I didn't deal with all those things, so they just built, while I had this fake facade of success kind of building. I was winning fights, I won a world title, I became 18-2. Professionally fighting on all these big televised shows, and all these people around me started to, it was like all these people telling me everything I wanted to hear. No one told me what I needed to hear, and I needed to get well. My family was a mess. My children were scared of me. My wife and I's marriage was completely dead, and it didn't take long for me to walk out of our marriage. I didn't even care, and a relationship with other women. We sold our home. We filed for divorce, moved in 2 separate apartments, and that was really like the rock bottom for me. Because at that time, my wife and I had 2 different reactions. My wife went into a church and started praying for our family, fighting for our family. She said she was so angry she didn't know how to pray, so she would just say, "God, let me see Chad the way you see Chad. Let me love him the way you love him. Let me forgive him the way you forgave him." So she was fighting for me when I had given up.
Absolutely.
And I was in this apartment, and when I got alone in that apartment was when I had that first realization that everyone I had blamed before, my father, the military for the way I got out, the fact that my wife always felt she didn't understand like what I went through, like, you don't understand what I went through, you don't know, and all these people that I blamed, I realized like it was me, like I was the common denominator. And that realization should have led me to make a change, but instead it led me to a point to where I decided, like, I'm the problem. I hurt all these people that love me, so if I remove myself from the situation, then they're going to be better off. And that was a decision that I think 20 plus veterans a day come to that hopelessness, to realize that you're the problem, and the world will be sad without you, but they'll be better off. And that's where I was, and I decided I was to take my life. I'd sit there alone, and you like sitting there with your firearm and having this kind of conversation with yourself. And what slowed the process, or maybe didn't give me the confidence or courage, whatever the factors were that stopped me from doing it, was I was alone, and I realized the persons that would find me was probably my children. And I had heard a statistic before that 1 in 3 children from a parent that commits suicide would do it as well. And I didn't even know where I heard it from, but it was going over in my mind. And so I was battling how I was going to make it look like an accident, how to pull this off without my children finding me and being impacted. So that's what delayed me. And then my wife, during that time, this is about a 2-week period, she came to my apartment and she asked me a question that just radically changed my life. She asked me, and she was there for the divorce papers, to sign them. But she asked me how I could have been successful in the military. She's seen me become a reconnaissance Marine. She's seen me do all these deployment trainings and schools, crazy schools, and then the MMA fights, cutting weight and doing all the hard work to get ready for all the discipline it takes to do all that. She's like, how could you do all that, and when it comes to our family, you'll quit? Since then, and a lot's taken place.
A life-defining moment.
Yeah, one of the biggest things for me was the guy that stepped into my life, because what I realized in that moment was that I did want to change, but I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I knew I couldn't do it by myself, and I knew I couldn't do it with the people that I had surrounded myself with, all these enabling kind of people. And it's not any fault to them. I pushed the accountability out, so I take responsibility for that. But I knew I couldn't do it, and so I had to go to my wife and say, is there a man in this church you're going to? And this was nothing to do with a faith-based decision. I'm just like, is there a man in this church you're going to that could help me? And she introduced me to a man named Steve Toth. And I think it's important to note that Steve never served in the military. He wasn't a veteran at all, and he didn't even really know any veterans. The reason that's important is because a lot of veterans out there, they disqualify people to help them. You've never been where I've been. You don't understand. And this guy never served in the military at all. In fact, he was going to introduce me to this retired Navy SEAL who was a chaplain. And I met this guy Steve, and he had everything I needed to help me. And the greatest gift he had was he's got ADD. Like really bad. and the reason I say that was he just didn't have he doesn't have any patience at all. He's like really and he didn't let me manipulate him. I was extremely manipulative at the time, and could have said all the right things, and he didn't have the patience for it. I literally wrote like an operational order, a 5-paragraph order, of how I was going to fix my life. And I met him at a Starbucks. First time I met him, I slid this paper over to him, and he didn't even look at it. He slid it right back to me, and he said, "You're going to fail, and you're going to end up right back where you are." And I said, I was like offended because he didn't even read all this work I put in this thing. And he's like, and he pointed to the paper. He's like, unless it has anything to do with God, you're going to end up right back where you are. And I'm not going to let you waste my time, and I'm not going to waste yours. And we have a saying at Mighty Oaks in our foundation: if what you're doing isn't working, then why not try something different? And I tried everything. I'd been on the pills, I did the counseling, I did the MMA and jiu-jitsu, and all those things didn't work. So it was time for me to try something different. So I trusted this man. And I surrendered my life to Christ. And beyond that decision, he mentored me for a whole year in biblical manhood. And what I discovered during the process was that all this time, the things that happened in my childhood, in Afghanistan, the friends I lost, in Iraq, like all these things that happened in my life, they didn't lead me to where I was. What led me to where I was the choices that I made. And I never lost control of that. And now I had not only the clarity to realize I had to take responsibility and choose differently moving forward, not let my past define my future. But I had the ability to have a set of principles to choose from. The truth is that there's 20 plus guys a day taking their lives of my brothers that were in the same spot every day, and the divorce rates were staggering. In some places like 80%. In some bases, and so when we started Mighty Oaks, it wasn't like, hey, wouldn't it be great if career move if we open a nonprofit and start helping veterans? It wasn't that at all. It was just, I wanted to pay forward what the challenge my wife gave me, the mentorship that Steve gave me, and a second chance that God has for all of us, and to be who we were created to be. And I just wanted to pay that forward. And that's all this has been. In the last 6 years, it's been amazing to see so many people impacted by it, me included, because every time we run a program and have a session, I'm equally impacted and grow further from where I was. From that dark pit I was in, I continue to move forward because of the work that we get to do, and the whole DNA of Mighty Oaks has been to do just what I did. Take your story and use it to help someone else.
Veteran correspondent Jim Benson caught up with Greg Gadson, businessman and the breakout star of the movie Battleship.
I know now you're the founder and CEO, I take it?
So Patriot Strategies was really a company I started 8 years ago. I started it because I started, while I was still in uniform, I started doing some things that were kind of outside the military. And so I just really wanted to compartmentalize my non-government activities from my government activities. And so when I retired about a year and a half ago, I partnered up with a friend of mine named Kurt Gutierrez, who I've known for 30 plus years. Wow. Played football with him at the United States Military Academy, and so really our idea was to continue to serve. Right. And so we feel like our experience and expertise, at least personally, has been focused with the Department of Defense, the State Department, and the Veterans Administration, and we're looking for opportunities where we can be value added and team with organizations to solve problems.
You focus on particular types of problems in terms of management, like as a consultant, or are you looking operational?
I did 26 years in the Army, and from the Balkans to Afghanistan, I've solved all kind of problems, and I'm comfortable.
And none of those were listed in the job description.
That's right, and so I'm confident in my ability to analyze a problem and get a team together that can solve it and be competitive.
Really, you get a play, you put the special team in there. Right. Here's what we have to do, and here's who can do it best. Here's the skills we need. And then you manage those skills, right. Focus on a clear vision for what it looks like when you succeed, and then aim for that.
And the one thing I've realized over time is I have very few of the answers or the right answers, and those are always fleeting in a way. It's really just kind of knowing how to get the answer.
That's it.
And that way you get the latest and greatest, and you can make sure you're thorough.
Now, you've been in business for how long?
The Patriot Strategy was started in 2008, but in earnest since October 2014 in the government services piece.
Greg, I understand you had a little bit of celebrity outside of what you've done for the military in terms of a little Hollywood movie action. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I was fortunate enough to be one of the lead actors in a movie called Battleship that came out in May of 2012. I was the director literally called me at my house one day he had seen an article in the newspaper about me and my work with the New York Giants, and asked me if I'd be in his movie. And you know, in kind of my own fashion, kind of said, yeah, what do I got to lose? And so I said yes, and 6 months later I was in Hawaii filming in Battleship. I had a classmate that was with the New York Giants, and they were struggling in the 2007 season, and I guess I'm given some credit for helping turn their season around by talking to them about life. And eventually they beat the 18-0 Super Bowl, 18-0 New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42. So I've got 2 Super Bowl rings with the New York Giants.
In this week's commentary, Army veteran Corinne Allen asked the question, what if it just started raining?
Education powers thought. Thoughts generate action, and actions fuel the planet, for better or for worse. My name is Corin Jonathan Allen. I'm a retired U.S. Army soldier who served this country for the better part of 26 years, from July of 1990 to January 2016. Today, as a graduate student at George Mason University School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution, the purpose for the rest of my life is to develop and implement an ideology of good, an educational vaccine for the contagion of hate, and further, to make it policy. While I have seen more than some and less than others, I've been fortunate to travel and work in more than 29 countries on 4 continents. For the better part of 4 years and during consecutive assignments, I worked in 10 countries on the continent of Africa and facilitated the training of more than 10,000 U.S. Army and host nation soldiers and civilians. The more I travel and the more people I meet from different corners of the planet, the more I'm convinced that we have so much more in common than we share in difference. Throughout history and even today, humans have used categories of difference to maintain a persistent state of conflict. The labels of skin color, religion, gender, immigration status, tribe, political affiliation, sexual preference, on and on we manufacture categories and labels that are misused as excuses to hate and further justify action. As a vaccine tutors the immune system, it protects the body from specific strains of infectious disease. In the same way, an educational vaccine tutors the mind and protects the soul from specific strains of hate. It gives the host an opportunity to think different, think better, and to choose better. An ideology of good, smiles, kindness and generosity and forgiveness. If we give the people tools to think different, maybe our visceral reaction towards a category of human we've never even met won't be hate or prejudice, but instead something along the lines of mutual respect, tolerance, and some measure of empathy. The only path to hope is an education of good, which leads to better choices. Education isn't just reading, writing, arithmetic, or history class in school. Education happens at home, on the street, at the movies, and today on our smartphones. Education is information in any form that is either watched, read, or heard. Through an exciting international student partnership program based on my children's book, What If It Just Started Raining, students in different countries participate in a parallel, dynamic in-class experience. The Kimbimbi Academy directly addresses the root cause of both global and regionally based human conflict. The Academy is a positive capability as much in the classroom as it is for community policing and international peace-building efforts. The book is inspired by a lifetime of education and experience and a fundamental conviction that we not only can, but should be better. The story is a simple conversation between a boy and his father, a Socratic series of questions that present an opportunity for perspective that many may never consider. When the earth is dry and it starts to rain, life is better, full stop. Rain doesn't care what color your skin is, what language you speak, your gender, religion, political affiliation, or even your immigration status. When the soul is dry and we share smiles, kindness and generosity, and forgiveness, life is better, full stop. What if it just started raining? During times of drought in the villages of Central Africa, which is modern-day Democratic Republic of Congo, when a Kimbimbi is sighted, this is a sign of hope that rain is coming and that soon the earth and her people shall be refreshed and renewed. The Kimbimbi is regarded as a provider of life, bringing hope of assurance and renewal, replenishment for the earth. The Kimbimbi is more than a legend of the people. It is our goal at the Kimbimbi Academy to bring this legend to life, to breathe life into the myth, and in order to promote open and honest conversations about universal respect. And thus, we shall craft a better world for the next generation.
That's all for this edition of Veterans in Transition. We ask that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you have a story, reach out to us at vetsintransition.com. And remember, we all have a story to tell. Until next time.
My name is Paul Davis. I'm a retired Navy captain. I'm also managing director of CDP and Associates. One of the most important things that I think we need to do as a nation is to truly appreciate the young men and women that in some cases have given their all, their lives, for the safety, well-being of this nation. Without those individuals, the freedoms that we enjoy, you wouldn't enjoy. So I just want to say thank you to each and every one of them, and I just hope that there's young people that will take their place in the future.